needs to be signed by each board member.
Okay.
So can you sign each one and then pass the same instruction?
I can certainly do that.
Oh, sorry. Nope, I did that. Okay.
I'd like to resume this meeting after an executive session. At this point, we'll start off with our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A couple of quick announcements. We had an executive session to discuss collective bargaining, contract discussion, and a disciplinary matter. And Mr. Gilbert will not be here this evening, but we had 6 of us. At this point, can we have a motion to adopt the agenda? Mrs. Miller, Mrs. Hoffman, all in favor? So let's move over to Board of Education comments reports. Would you like to make anything? Okay.
Yep, I just want to report on, just want to give you guys some interesting news, which is High School Partnership has come up with this plan to have a monthly podcast for the Shen community. It'll be a produced monthly program with random topics that are, relatable for our students, and it's a pretty exciting endeavor that we're taking on. It's a really, it's an excited group to put this together, so we're happy about that. And that's it for now. Very exciting, actually.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
Can't wait for that.
So it's for the students?
It's for the community. There's
for
going
the
to be a
community.
link that
Ah,
anybody can
okay.
click on, and it's going to be, themes like the college application process, rejection, time management, determination, dealing with failure, life skills, resilience, choosing not to go to college, and maybe some of our favorite, if you will, teachers will be interviewed and and how they dealt with certain topics.
Yep.
So it should be
Very
great.
exciting.
That sounds
Yeah.
great. What's the timeline? Sorry.
We're hoping the first one will be launched in December.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That sounds really exciting.
Yep.
Okay. Is it okay? Should I go?
ahead.
Oh, okay. I went to the this year's annual NISBA convention that was held actually last week, or last weekend, Thursday through the weekend. And I do look forward to this event every year. I learn a lot. I get to collaborate with other board members. This year was no exception, and there was something that I wanted to possibly bring to our mid-year retreat, and I just wanted to ask, we're still having that, right? Mid-year retreat, is it January?
I don't think we have anything scheduled, but I think it's a good idea to put something in there.
Okay.
Generally, our retreats have been a 2-hour in the summer, so there's probably room to do it in mid-year.
Okay. The other thing I noticed, it was hard not to notice, and that was showcasing the students, and there was so many ways that they do this. They have the robotics teams there. There's the K through 12 display of artwork, and there were various choruses, and there were some local schools there too, so it was pretty exciting. And the only thing I'd like to ask is if we could possibly identify groups to showcase. I think it would be a great opportunity, and we have so much success to share. So I'm hoping that the administration will look to do that. I also, and thanks to Gusta for this, I was able to attend a BOCES seminar, and this was last Wednesday. No, but I do appreciate you sharing that with me. The seminar was focused on addressing challenges with collection and reporting data throughout New York State. Administrators present was Dr. Wood and Mr. Melia. Although there was some discussion about the Ed Law 2D and just essentially personally identifiable data, the focus was, it was really a focus group just fleshing out the issues. I learned so much. I had no idea there were so many different systems that school districts use and how they send it all to the state, and the only way you can get it is downloading PDFs. It was really an eye-opener for me. And I know that there's much to come on that, but I just wanted to share what was discussed, and I hope I did a good job in sharing what was discussed. Earlier today, we had a DIDIC meeting, and this was actually pretty neat because we hear about Chromebooks and technology and how it's used, but we got to see firsthand some of that happening, a social studies class using web video. We saw a collaboration between art teachers and technology teachers using Google Drawing. Our High School West, one of our math teachers at High School West was showing how she uses Kami extension with her math students. And there was also, although this is not a tool that's used by students, Google Chat, and discussing how that could be also used to facilitate collaboration and communication within the district amongst administrators and teachers. And we also wrapped up with discussing the timeline for our Future Ready grants, and it sounds like that's coming fast and furious too. The next month is the deadline, or January is the deadline? January is the deadline. Tomorrow we have a policy meeting. Policies up for review are generally board governance policies, so it's relatively straightforward for tomorrow. On today's agenda, you'll see that there's a first reading, and the ones to highlight are the where mostly changes were small, but 7450 fundraising by students, and we also have a new policy that we're going to have up for first reading tonight, conflict of interest specific to familiar relationships. And then the only other thing I wanted to share is, because I got this email, I saw this and I thought this would be good. I thought that was interesting. Our two board reps at the high school probably already know about this, but Senior Lauren Spiegel will be sharing a presentation about nutrition. She's actually an athlete. I think she's lacrosse and field hockey.
And lacrosse player.
Yeah, so she's going to be giving a presentation at the PTSA meeting specific to nutrition, and I thought, wow, that's pretty exciting to have that. And then there was one other thing that looks like I did not print that out in my notes. Hang on one second. I know there were two things up for, there was another presenter coming in tomorrow as well.
I could share that. I have that.
You have that? Okay, if you could. That's it for me then. Take it away.
What Mrs. Huffman was referring to also at the high school PTSA meeting, they're having a guest from the addiction centers of Albany coming in. He was recently at a forum that was in Del Mar, and he was just talking about different school districts and getting involved, hearing more about reaching the students, and I was at that and shared that, you know, especially through Shen, how we have as part of the health education, a lot of the things he was talking about. So, you know, I said, really, it's more reaching the parents for him. I think he was, you know, a little out of his realm of what he was talking about. So I think he reached out to the high school PTSA. So I'm curious to see. So I will be there to make sure that it is appropriate moving forward. But we're excited to hear what he is going to be speaking on. Talking about also the New York State School Board Association convention, I too find it very informative, and many times also validates what we're doing here at Chen. Mm-hmm. Some of the presentations, you know, we've been doing many of these things for years or have really excelled in what we're doing, and I think sometimes we can provide an example to a lot of these folks that are sharing, but then there's always a few new things of interest. I typically attend things that are related to any committees that I sit on, so like health and wellness, so I'll be sharing this out with that committee, but some of the things they shared at one about the correlations between increased marijuana use among middle school and high schoolers across the state, how it's correlated to vaping, actually. So I thought it was really interesting, a lot of data. So Mrs. Carmen, you know, I'll be sharing that with you in the committee, things that I wasn't even aware of. So I thought it was quite interesting and different ways to educate the students as well on that. So that, and another thing which is probably may not be appropriate for Shen, but I was very interested in telemedicine. In the schools, one of the schools out in Western New York, the telemedicine, it was more for, they wanted it as a opportunity for mental health, you know, versus the physical aspects of the students, but found that it became very beneficial from the physical aspects, not just the mental health aspects of their students, where they had some students that what they consider charity care. Their families may not have health insurance, so these kids would miss a lot of schools because they wouldn't see the doctors or get any of the prescribed medications. So through the schools, they had permission where they'd have an online doctor. I mean, the technology that was used to actually check a child right there in the nurse's office was pretty impressive. And of course, my question was, how is the school district involved with that liability and all that? They said it's actually usually parents sign a waiver saying that they'll allow their students to, see go through the telemedicine. But it's all through the insurance of the families. If they don't have it, it's through the provider that takes care of charity care. So there's no cost to the district except for some of the, what they call robotic stations that have all the technology and the video. That was pretty neat to see when they correlated again with kids missing school because they might not get to the doctors quick enough, or parents at work can't get out, so kids that may be delayed and getting other kids sicker than they should be. So very interesting, and I'm looking more into that, but I will also share that out too with the committee just as informational and maybe something down the road as a pilot. So that's it for me.
Can I just ask a question though? But isn't that what we do with Saratoga for the family? We have them in-house
Yeah.
so people
Yes,
can...
they're in-house,
Okay.
right. But like I said, this is also not even for the mental health component.
okay,
That's how
got
they
it.
initially introduced it to this
Okay.
one school district, but found out that it actually helped beyond the mental health, more for the physical health. Yes, correct. We're fortunate this school district didn't have that opportunity, so that's it for me.
I won't go into the seminars that we attended during the conference or convention. I attended the law conference, which is held Thursday from 8 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon. I would strongly suggest that others on the board attend that. Some of the presenters were more effective than others. There was, excuse me, there was one young woman. All women are younger than I am now. But she was absolutely amazing in terms of her ability to go chapter, verse, et cetera, of the law. But while it was impressive, it wasn't particularly useful to most of the individuals that were attending the conference. On the other hand, there was some storytelling relative to the application of the law by another individual that was very effective. So that was as far as the presentation was concerned, that was my observation. There were a couple things that came out that I was not aware of at all. One had to do with emotional and mental health. Apparently there are now regulations or law in place that was not in place previously. More clearly defines the role, the scope, the depth of guidance counselors in this area. For lack of a better way of putting it, I would say that they put into place something that amounts to triage. Teachers, parents bring their issues to the attention of guidance counselors. Guidance counselors deal with these things to the extent that they are capable of dealing with them. And then they are referred to other professionals that have the resources and training to go further in an appropriate manner. It sounds like they've got their act together. So there was that. The other thing that they mentioned had to do with cybersecurity. We know that there have been a number of ransomware attacks, and they've actually gone after school districts and BOCES, and they bury this stuff to be activated only when it's critically, when the damage could be critical and the agency is most likely to say, we've got to pay this because we've got to get this done. We need access to our data. In connection with that, apparently they're now requiring a separate security officer on cybersecurity. They said specifically, please do not pass this on as an additional function or role for somebody who's already employed in that area of your organization, but someone who not only is expert in that area, cybersecurity, but also is knowledgeable enough of curriculum and instruction and so forth and so on, so that they are in a sufficiently high enough position, they call them an officer, so that they can actually make decisions that'll stick, that they can be enforced. So I thought that was very interesting. As far as being the delegate, the voting delegate, Most of the resolutions that were proposed were passed. There were only two resolutions that I thought warranted some further discussion here at this point following the convention. One had to do with the, in a 3028 hearing, tenure hearing, that the redress, the punishment, if you will, that would be levied against the individual who was being charged. If the individual was found guilty and the charges were upheld, the hearing officer would not have any latitude whatsoever in terms of what they did. It became essentially a mandatory sentence, and it was dependent upon what the school district itself had decided they were going after. I was definitely against that. Sometimes when it comes to money, when it comes to tenure hearings and so forth, unfortunately, I think a lot of my fellow school board members have blinders on. They don't see the implications beyond, oh, this gives us more authority, this saves us money. I mean, it really comes down to that, power and money. And I think that given the way things operate, sometimes the initial penalty that would be imposed by the district is actually tougher than what they would otherwise seek for whatever had transpired. One, it's a way of intimidating and getting a settlement from the individual outside the tenure hearing. The other being that there is a possibility under the present time that it would be reduced. So you come in high and you wind up with what you want. Therein, if you make it a mandatory thing with the hearing officer, he has to go along with what the school district has requested. Someone spoke to the idea that, well, perhaps some of these hearing officers, realizing that the penalty was too egregious for what had transpired, that they might very well not even hold the individual guilty, whereas they might otherwise find them guilty, just so they didn't have to impose that penalty, which was out of line. So I'm thinking that come next year that has to see the light of day again. It has to be addressed, and we have to speak to the fact that it's a really bad idea to take that latitude and ability, flexibility away from the hearing officer and impose the sentence. By the way, it was with 200 and some odd people present, the difference between winning and losing was like 12 votes. So it was a pretty divided issue. There was one other issue that was also divided, and quite frankly, I'm not sure about how the general provisions for dire need or when there's someone who is retired and has a special skill and the district has a need for them, I know that they can be brought in and they do not lose their pension, and they are not confined necessarily to the limits that would otherwise apply to a retiree in terms of their public earnings. And so the proposal was that people who had previously been peace officers, police officers, and so forth could be hired by school districts to serve as security officers and so forth, and that they would be automatically allowed to earn whatever they earned without a limit. And this would be automatic. I actually had a problem with the automatic part. I thought that they should still have to go through the paperwork as you would with a retired, for instance, a retired superintendent or building administrator before you put them on and so forth. They had to be approved. If there is a dire need and there's a scarcity of people, then it should be approved. And I would think that if it doesn't currently apply to other things, such as security officers, that would be the way to go. That would allow them to be hired without giving a blanket approval. So that's that. The last thing I wanted to say And I'm saying it now so that I am committing myself to it. I will not be renewing my office as a BOCES board representative. Come the end of this year, my term is up. There are people on that BOCES, a 90-year-old man that has served over 40 years. I have been on there 10 years. There are three people that have come in over the course of that 10-year period of time that have less time than I have, and one that is only a couple of years more. But it tends to be a long-term proposition. If I really felt that I was effective and I was doing the job as effectively as it could be done, I probably would say fine. But I really don't think that I'm doing the job as well as somebody else might do it. And as a consequence, I want to step back from it. It's a different organization. It is not. It is a board, but the people are elected by other boards, the way senators used to be elected by state legislatures instead of directly by the people. And so there isn't a matter of a public vote. In the case of the seat that I hold, while we are at-large representatives, that is, we represent everybody in the entire BOCES, not just a specific area. By gentleman's agreement, there are a number of seats that are assigned to Albany, Schenectady, Schoharie, and one seat assigned to Southern Saratoga County, which comprises Shenendehowa and Burnt Hills. So the person that serves is not representing Shenendehowa or Burnt Hills. They're representing all the component districts and all the kids and so forth, the parents. So there is not that. Although sometimes they say, well, as the Shenendehowa person, even the board members will do that. So no, I'm not the Shenendehowa person here. I may speak from my experience at Shenendehowa, but I'm not the Shenendehowa person here. But anyway, I don't intend to continue. And I've already been talking to one of our board members who's expressed an interest, and I think that person would be a good individual to serve. And I think they have the interest and energy to do a good job, and so I will do that. Thank you.
In the interest of time, I'm actually going to skip because we only had a Shenendehowa Education Foundation meeting, so nothing new to report on that. So, go ahead, Bob.
Well, first I want to thank you, Gary, for your 10 years supporting the BOCES organization. What a lot of people don't realize is how important that is to get the perspective both of a district, a career educator, a parent into those meetings. And so we look forward to what you suggested as a way to transition to another person as well. Each board member should have, and I can turn about 4 of these over. Thank you. An email usage.
Do it?
Yep. So this is one of the nice things that we get from the NYSSBA convention. I like to refer to it because this is probably the topic we get most caught up around in email usage. And it's got some great advice at the back of it, but I think this answers a lot of questions that have come up. And just we'll leave it at that because it's a good thing to read when you get a chance. The NYSSBA convention, from my perspective, covered a lot of things. The major shift is that there's less discussion about testing and technology and more about social emotional learning. Mr. Rajat provided a great example of social emotional learning because when we look at things like telemedicine, the way we do medicine today, there's a lot of barriers that make it very disruptive to students to make it a nurturing environment if they've got a specific issue, a specific need for a doctor or a therapist or something like that. It just gets very hard to get people back to and from those types of treatments. Telemedicine offers the ability to reduce that and create more of an improved social emotional experience for students. So that's an example that I picked up from the convention and what we should be looking at more to make it a better experience for our students. The one thing that really stuck out in 2 presentations was the use of restorative justice. So there was one group, Western New York, they explained their practices. We're typically a suburban school with lots of kids, and we're in a the high end of the social economic spectrum here at Shen. We all kind of understand that. Other schools, districts in New York, are entirely different. And they have to really understand, and they're applying restorative justice probably a lot more than we are, and they probably have a need to do it. But I think it's time that we have these conversations to see what we can do to improve our social emotional learning from our students. One presentation was from Western New York, and it was almost like an academy that really addressed the need. Another presentation was from northern part of New York, and they really talked about what they're doing to prevent security issues from students. And they felt that taking a restorative justice approach allows them to better understand the student body and better prevent, better mitigate, better catch a problem early. And I thought that was just as compelling. So that's something I thought we want to bring forward into future board meetings as ways that we can improve. I think this builds very well on what we've done with diversity, because what we all have to realize is that when we look at who is most impacted by what we call the school to prisons pipeline, it tends to be minority students. Okay, so there is a correlation there that we're looking at, so that we aren't through internal biases taking the wrong approach here. So I think it's worth bringing that into future conversations. Overall, I would agree with what we're doing. Many things we are doing as a district are probably way ahead of the curve of what a lot of other folks are doing. So I just want to say thank you very much for the work that has gone forward to continue to make this a better district. Thank you very much.
Good job.
Thanks. Any public comments? Any students that are going to come forward? While you do that, this is an opportunity for the public to address the board. Are there any residents in attendance? If so, please complete the form. The board will not address specific comments, but ask for your name and address in the event, follow up as necessary. Remind residents the public comment in our meeting is only one item on the agenda. We therefore ask each speaker to be as succinct as possible, and remarks be limited to 2 to 3 minutes. We would also expect residents to speak in a respectful and courteous manner so as to model proper civility and decorum for our students. Residents may also contact the board by email at boe.chena.org. All questions come into the Office of the Public Information Officer and are shared with the board and their superintendent as appropriate. Policy questions and concerns are typically addressed by the board president. Operational questions and concerns are typically addressed by the superintendent and her designee. So thank you very much. Go ahead, please.
Hi, I'm Joyce Fu again. I'm one of the representatives of Senate to the Board of Ed. Unfortunately, Elena cannot make it tonight because she has tech rehearsals for the Crucible drama. But besides that, in the last month, we had 2 of our events, the pep rally and the homecoming dance. Part of the pep rally, we sold our homecoming shirt sales, which we donated those proceeds to the Shen Bountiful Backpack Program. As for our homecoming dance, we sold roughly around 280 tickets, and we received a lot of positive feedback, and we hope to have future dances. We got around $2,900 as a profit from that, and using that money, we plan to buy candy canes to be part of our candy cane donations, which will be going towards the Shen Helping Shen program. So that's that. Those sales will be running in around 2 weeks up until December break. So.
Well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody else that would like to speak? Going once, twice? Okay, let's turn over to Dr. Robinson for superintendent's report.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I'll be brief before we go on to the information item. Just want to do 2 quick recognitions. It's interesting that someone talk about the impact of Shen in various places, and oftentimes the things that we talk about are unfortunately the negative things. We spend so much time talking about the few negative things and often overlook all the wonderful things that's happening. And the wonderful young lady just came here that spoke about the wonderful things that young people are doing on behalf of the Shen community. And so we don't spend enough time to celebrate those things. And so I don't know, maybe it's a function of age or whatever it is, but I'm getting so much more sentimental in my young days here. That when I see these little neat things, I think that we need to scream from the mountaintop about the wonderful works that people are doing. An email came from, I'm not sure if Robin Gores is here in the audience. She typically is, and the one that I'm talking about, she's not here. An email came from Robin Gores, who's a principal here at Gowanus. And I was out of district yesterday, so I was spending today catching up to 362 emails that comes within a day and a half. And I saw this email about, she was so excited about one of her teachers that she was observing a math teacher. And if you run into Leslie Brunick, math teacher here at Gowanus. And Robin was so excited because she was doing an evaluation, and the teacher has a student in her class that's a Russian student that speaks very minimal English. And so just on her own accord, the teacher, she translated the instructions for the student. And when she can't translate it electronically, she translated with notes on the paper so that this young person can have access to the same quality experience as everyone else within that classroom. I put that in context because for years now, as a school district, we've been talking about this whole notion of equity and opportunities and outcomes. And so sometimes we look at the big things that we're doing. And, you know, those things are important, but it's when those little things happen. And there are many of those little things that happen when people are taking the time to take that extra step to make a difference for a young person. That's what I think our system is about. And those are the things that we should celebrate. So I just kind of want to bring those kind of things to the board table, because as board members, you hear all the, excuse the French, you hear all the crap. You hear all the crap and the complaints. You know, you hear in the grocery store, people telling you all the things that's bad, and rarely you have people telling you some of those little good things that's happening all over the place. So I think it's important for you to hear that. Related to that, again, another email, Al Karam, who you hear from later on, Al has been such a champion for transportation personnel since he has been on the board, and exposing them to not only statewide associations, but national associations. And so he sent me an email that one of our drivers, John Fay, was one of, I think, 6 individuals from across the country that was selected by the National Association for Pupil Transportation to win a scholarship, the Peter and Linda Lawrence Scholarship Award, that essentially pays this person's way to go to this national conference. So when you think about that, this is someone who, quite frankly with you, probably would never even contemplate going to the national conference, even the state conference. And our folks are one of 6 from across the country. So again, those things that I think we have to pause to celebrate, because that's the encouragement that one driver does for the other driver that change the entire culture of the transportation department in terms of the professionalism that we expect and appreciate from all our personnel. So again, I'm sharing that with you as a board because you hear all the stuff, but you also need to hear the things that really makes the system go, and it's all the people who do quality works just because. Not for credit or fanfare, but simply because. So I just want to share those things with you. So again, thank you for that indulgence. We have a couple presentations on the docket, and I'm going to ask Mrs. Chase to come forward. And I'll kind of just do some preview. We have a facilities committee, Mr. Gilbert, who's not here tonight, and Mr. DeLallo is on the facilities committee. Mr. Gilbert saw this presentation, and so probably this reason why he decided not to be at the board meeting tonight. Actually, he's traveling, and he sent his apologies for not being in attendance. And Mr. DeLallo is on this piece of it. So part of it is kind of a threefold piece. One, to talk about the projects that took place this summer, to talk about the things that's in the hopper that we're hoping to take place next summer, and then to put a thought out there in terms of a potential referendum piece as we move forward. So Mrs. Chase will go through the first 2, and then I'll pick up on the third one.
Okay. So we had a lot of work going on this summer, as most people know, if you attempted to drive across campus at all. Thanks to Augie for taking all these pictures for us. Here we're removing some of the trees for paving around the high school east parking lot.
So this is that before and after. The beautiful
Right.
lots you see, this is what it looks like. People forget what it was like before that.
Again, high school east paving project. Hard to believe it looked like this at one point in time. Again, moving to the parking loop roadway, expanding high school east parking lot. A lot of work being done there. More work. Really impressive when you see the finished product, the new configuration. Did some road drainage. As people might know, we often have troubles with puddles that become big puddles. This was just a design.
That's cute. That is cute.
It's priceless.
Oh,
And you still got the picture. So they did get their picture taken.
Yeah.
Middle school parking parking lot under construction. Between the pool and the bus garage. You ever wanted to see the view from on top of the high school west gym? That's what it looks like. And then the high school east kitchen. A lot of work being done there. And this is the cafeteria. This continued somewhat even after school opened, but this is the cafeteria ceiling work being done, pretty much done. And then the north and south cafeteria floor, epoxy finish, came out very nice.
School is that?
Scano and
Scano?
Yep.
And then the district office had some of the roof work being done for the snow slides, which in the wintertime causes a fair amount of leaks, so hopefully that will be remedied. And currently, while there's in a picture, they're doing HVAC work in the district office as well. And then this is preparing for the tech wing for next summer into the fall. This is kind of the before picture, kind of the map of what the tech wing looks like now at High School East. And then this is the proposed layout that's going into SED as we speak.
So, Kat, we just want to highlight a couple of things for the board. If you look at this area, it's contained square, and the only people who ever go into the square are the kids who are taking classes within the square. And kudos to Rose Barra, who's kind of been leading this charge of trying to say not only do we modernize the space, but how do we make the space a space that more kids will be able to go into. So we start looking at the types of courses, so we start bringing the physics courses into the space and having multi-purpose use spaces and having a classroom study space, and the whole configuration changes, and sort of the flow of the dynamic of that space will be much more fluid and more inviting, because we also want to be able to have courses. For instance, you may have a digital arts class that may want to come down and do things with CAD. And so we have cross-discipline opportunities as well. So we're pretty excited about this. So it's more than just moving the squares around. It's really trying to change the purpose, if you will, of the facility that we have.
So I just want to say, it's awesome that you're going to have 2 bathrooms right there. In my mind, that is the most exciting thing, because if you're in that area and you have to go to the bathroom and you're a lady, you have a long hike to find the nearest bathroom. So that's awesome. Where is all the storage going? Because in the previous slide, you showed a lot of storage space.
Everything's within spaces now.
Oh, it's actually in the space. It's still there.
Yeah.
And then with this multi-use space, that darker green, is that a corridor? Or is
This
that
is a corridor, yes.
Okay, so it's not a classroom.
No.
Okay.
They're just trying to make the spaces more accessible for them, so it's not
Okay.
a contained block. So we're pretty excited, and we've made some modifications to this since as well. So it is always going to be some tweaking, but just to give the board the general flavor of what's going to happen in that area as we move forward. So I'm pretty excited about it.
And is it your hope that once this is approved by SED that the work's done in the summer? Is it something that can actually be done?
Well,
And I mean, it looks like pretty comprehensive.
So we're pretty ambitious, and we put a lot of pressure on our project manager, Freeman Project Management Company. And I mean, as soon as it's approved, the sooner we bid it, we'll start the process as soon as we can. And people don't realize that literally we have 2.5, 3 months to get a lot of stuff done and create some conveniences. So that's the ideal. Realistically, we probably will be phasing things over the course of the school year, because not only are we doing this project, but we're also doing the science rooms. And
At
so
the same time.
it's a lot of moving parts.
Well, the science room's starting earlier, right? That one's already approved.
Again, it's that phase-in piece.
Okay.
So we'll have to, once we get all approval, we'll put down and really try to think about truly what's the best movement, so we're not doing one thing and have to undo because of sequencing. So So the approval piece has become important, but it's going to be another busy spring, summer, fall. That's the sequence that we're looking to go spring, summer, fall. So maybe December we'll be all done and everyone forget all the torture that they went through for 6 months. But it's this, I mean, it's like your house, right? If you renovate your kitchen, you eat out every night because you don't have a kitchen. And so you just have to make the accommodation, and once you get to a new kitchen, you forget about your old kitchen.
True.
And so that's kind of, that context is important because sometimes people don't want to deal with it because of inconvenience. We have to deal with the inconvenience.
That's horrible to be doing.
So I'm pretty excited about this project.
And then, yet to be erected are the kiosk signs that we'll have at both the Mo Road entrance and the 146 entrance. Just lays out the campus with all the fields. And we also have up in the right-hand corner the Django and Ate directions as well, and Oranjan and Chattacon.
So this is going to be pretty neat. It's the little pull-offs to nowhere that if you come up 146, you got to put cones so people pull off and realize they're not going anywhere. It's supposed to be a pull-off. So once the signs are there, it will make more sense. And so we're pretty excited about having signage across the campus, and uniform signage across the campus becomes important too. So this is one of those, again, something that on the surface seems simple, but huge difference. And that's not even from people from out of town. We see it when parents for the first time who have kids in the elementary has come to the campus. They're like, shocking when you're driving for the first time on the campus and you have no idea what's where. So we're looking forward to this project and the kiosk as well.
And then these are just some examples of what the new wayfinding signage will look like on the exterior of the buildings. You can see it's got a number of slots for a variety of things. So that's coming, that's being designed as we speak as well. And again, just some additional signage and what that will look like.
So a lot of neat things happening. The piece I wanted to spend a little time, I mentioned to the board last time. So we have a pretty extensive strategic plan, if you will, for facilities. And it's been in place now for going back till maybe 2010, 2012. And the whole objective is to bring projects on board with minimal or no impact, cost impact. What I mean by that? So probably the best way to think about it, and my family right now. So my daughter desperately wants a car, but she can't get a car until she gets her driver's license. She can't get a driver's license until one of us teach her how to drive. And we won't teach her how to drive yet because we don't want to buy a car yet until my wife's car is paid off. Because when we bring the third car on board, we still only want to have the same financial exposure as when we had the 2 cars on board. And so we have this delayed thing going on. And my daughter's going to hear this tonight, and that parent over there saying, that's a great idea. I should do that with my kid. And so the point I'm making this is that as a school system, we have to think about that from a cost perspective. When we mature debt is when we try to bring new debt on board. And so we bring projects on board, and our debt, our mortgage payment, if you will, is actually going down because we're maturing debt, we're bringing a smaller amount of debt going on board. And we've been doing what I call these mini projects. In some people's mind, probably think 25, 10, 15, 20, $25 million is not a mini project. But when you start looking around the region and people going out with $200 million projects, they sound exciting, but I got to tell you, construction of them is unbearable. And there's a lot of inefficiency in it because the sequence, the timing, and all those kind of things. We'd rather have projects that come on board, that we have a defined time period, that we know we're going to do it, get it done, and build on to the next thing. And so as we start looking at our debt, as we start looking at our needs, we start to try to figure out the timing. What's the best timing to do projects? So what we call in Project 2020 is actually probably 2 years out before we even construct anything. So if we ask the voters to approve a referendum in 2020, we may not very well be constructing until 2022. The projects that you just saw here were approved in 2016. And how here we are in 2019, finalizing those projects because of all the process you have to go through. So I share that sequence to the board. So we have a couple of different things. We have a pretty extensive 5-year facilities plan that's been completed by architects and update all the time. And so there's some things that we need to do, what we call priority 1 items. Those are the things that if we don't do them within the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to have some huge potential issues. Then we have some priority 2 items, then we start going down priority 3, priority 4, those kind of things. Things that need to be done, but maybe not in the next 5, 10, 15-year sequence. And so when we start looking at some of those kind of things, things that people don't think about, the track and the turf. Almost 14 years ago when we did that.
Oh,
So the life cycle on that was anywhere from 10 to 12, depends on how you maintain it. And so now, fast forward, if we go over this project, we won't do anything with that until it's probably 15, 16, maybe 17 years old. So keep that sequence as a point of reference when you think about those kind of things. We're looking at LED lights because, again, cost savings, huge cost savings when we change those things out. Brick buildings, if you go around our bricks, we have building with bricks and repointing of measures. It's not like your house when you do 10 of them. We're doing hundreds of thousands of them when you think about across the district, those kind of things always. Window replacements. If you start looking at windows, you start seeing air bubbles within windows because the seals start to go after the 30-year-old window that we've had in some of the buildings. So I share those with them. I'm not going to go through each one of them, but we have these things that we have to do all the time. Boiler replacements, all these things, they're not that sexy, but if we don't do them, they're huge, huge issues for us moving forward. So this project is looking about, estimating right now, it's rough estimates, about $15.5 million to address a wide variety of things. Power capacity is an interesting one. We are now into the technology age. Our buildings weren't designed for the technology age. So power and capacity is always an issue with us. How do we keep expanding power capacity to deal with the fact that we're in the technology age? Just an example of some of those kinds of things. So again, a lot of things that we're looking to do, asbestos removal, at the transportation department, doing some things with our paint booths so we can keep doing work internally. We have tanks underground that we haven't necessarily used, but we have to dig up. And those are always huge potential things because anything underground is always one of those you cross your fingers, hope that you find nothing else when you start digging.
What type of tanks?
Be it oil tanks, be it heat. So over the years, we've done a lot of them over the years, but we still have some that even underground storage tank now for gas purposes, those kind of things. So a lot of those kind of things that we still have to do. So I'm sharing that with the board that these are the pieces that we'll do a lot of work, and someone will come and say, "What did you do?" And you probably won't notice a lot of what we did because everything would look normal, and that's the intent, right? To make it look as if it was always that way. But we also then thinking about some additional stuff like, the gymnasium floors. Our gymnasiums, we go down the hall right now, we have probably 10 youth groups using the gymnasium at night. Those floors, every year we sand them down, but after a while you get to a point where you can't sand anymore. You have to start replacing. So everything for us is large scale all the time. So we're looking at some of those kind of things. So that's where some of that 15.5 looking to do. And then we want to do some programmatic things. In the last couple of years, we had a lot of focus on the high school. We did a high school library. We did a high school cafeteria. We're doing a high school science wing and tech wing, as you just noticed here. We want to start shifting some of that focus now to do some modernization, middle school modernization, elementary school modernization, undefined. So I'm sharing it with you. We're going to have a lot of conversations. How do we modernize spaces, not to make them look pretty, but to talk about how do we look at functionality 10 years from now? What do we need and how do we get that space to that point? So some of that is going to be this. And so right now, again, rough estimate, about 23.5, rough estimate. This is like me in my head playing with some of these things at this point. And but again, we're looking at anticipated work completion in 2022, 2023, if we go out on a referendum in 2020. But there's a lot of work to do with that if. It's not, right now we're thinking, we can't, I'm not sure if we would be prepared to do a referendum proposal with the budget vote, because as much as you think, oh, this is October, this is November, the budget vote is May, there's so many things that you have to do prior to that. So this could very well be a midstream referendum some point in the fall, but that's to be determined. We're going to be reconvening the facilities committees in the next month or so to kind of talk about some specific around timeline. But I just wanted to share that with you as a board because we're pretty excited about this potential of doing this, because if we don't, add 3 years to whatever delay you have in terms of when we get those things done. So that's one proposition I want to put out there to the board. The second piece, just want to provide an update. As the board knows, we went through the process of selling the property to the town of Clifton Park with the intention of buying land in the town of Half Moon. We've had some discussions with some potential sellers, and we have done some preliminary, if you want to say, appraisals of some properties, so we have some sense of what's the going price point for certain property. Waiting to hear back from some realtors that are dealing with potential sellers. So I was hoping actually tonight to have more concrete information, but the gentleman emailed me said that at this point they're still trying to come together and think about a package piece of it. So the point to the board is this process is ongoing, but there are aspects of it that we don't necessarily control. However, if all the things come together, the ideal would be, again, to have something as a proposition in May. The reality of it is, if this doesn't come together within the next month and a half, it's probably not going to be a proposition in May. So again, I'm sharing with the board, we're working aggressively towards that, but there are a lot of moving parts related to this piece of it, including once we get to some sense of, is this a property we're going to purchase? We have to do a pretty extensive engineering study to say, is this land what we think it is? Because, it's not like you and I can say, hey, it looks like pretty good to me. Yeah, until you start doing soils and everything else, then you realize that what looks pretty good may not be as good as we'd like it to be, and we want to buy property that we can effectively develop without putting a lot of money into preparing the property for development purposes. So that's kind of, just want to bring the board up to date where we are on a potential land piece. If everything comes together, we may well be coming back together to talk about more specifics in terms of purchasing and contracts and things of that nature. But at this point, we're not at that juncture. So I'll pause there, Mr. Bilal.
I just wanted to check a point. It says Farley Grant. Should that be Riley Grant?
Boy, so great point. So Senator Riley is just like upset that I insulted him and I'm going to scroll it down so no one saw that. So Senator Riley probably, I don't know, 6 years ago maybe, was able to secure some funds towards this purchase, and we've been holding on to that money. Thank you, Mr. Delalo. My apologies, former Senator Riley. And Senator Ford is probably thinking, see, even when I'm getting credit for things I didn't do. So thank you for pointing that out. I'll make sure I change that right away. So we still have that grant funds that we have allocated, holding on to for the potential purchase of property as well. Any questions that you have right now based upon what you have heard? So exciting times ahead. A second piece, as Mr. Karen come forward, again, another one of those neat things that when people think about safety, they think about active shooting. That's people think that safety is only about the extremes, but there's so many other things that we do related to safety. This is one of those neat things that Al's been doing with transportation.
I'll take it, sure. Either way. So first I want to point out that picture right there. You see that criminal on the deck, face down in the puddle? That was me.
I was going to say, was that you? Was that you?
So we did some
Took one for the
practical
team.
application training with the county
for the
sheriff.
team.
So that's a real picture from our training here. So what I want to share with you tonight is for the past few years, we've been working on enhancing our operations, safety, and security. We've partnered with local and federal agencies to help us in this endeavor. I want to talk about our involvement with the Transportation Security Administrations by first talking about their BASE program. The TSA BASE program came about after the 9/11 terrorist attack. It's part of Transportation Security Administration Highway and Motor Carrier Division and a Surface Transportation Security Inspection Program. It's a mouthful. The base is an assessment review which compares our internal security processes, procedures, and policies against TSA's developed security recommendations. The base has 4 pillars. They are management and accountability, personnel security, facility security, and vehicle security. On the management accountability side, they cover security threat assessment, security planning, protecting critical information, and awareness of industry security practices. And the vehicle security focuses on the actual movement and handling of school buses and, of course, our most precious cargo, the children. The base has 20 security action items, which delve deeper into each of the 4 categories I just mentioned. The TSA team derived their base assessment from interviews with district administrators and employees, review of policies and procedures, training, looking at documents, and actual observation of system operations to determine compliance. The scores reflected in some of the graphs I'm going to share with you were impacted not only by items internal to Transportation Department, but as a district as a whole. The recommendations made by TSA are simply that. They don't obligate the school district to implement them. They don't carry any force of law or regulations, and they are kept confidential. They're not released to the public. And I'm not going to be able to talk about, so if you had questions about, well, where we weak or whatever, I'm not going to be able to talk about that in public. We certainly have that report, and you can look at it. So let's take a look at what the Transportation Department has done in the safety and security arena in 2015, 2018, and the practical application assessment we did in 2019. They're listed in front of you. As stated previously, our efforts to raise safety and security awareness, studying our processes, and retool our plans have been ongoing since 2015. Specifically, we've incorporated safety and security as part of our initial training for our staff that we bring on. We've partnered with the County Sheriff Department and the Albany office of the TSA to provide us with awareness training through professional development, demonstrations, and assessment of our plans and procedures. We've developed recently a transportation specific safety and security plan, which we will be rolling out to our department here later on this month at our monthly safety meeting. And of course, we'll continue this effort into the future. So, next graph. Here's the 2015 base. It showed that we were right at or above the national average in the 20 security action items that they audited. Specifically, we scored higher than the national average in 13 of the 20 areas. 2 areas were even, and 5 areas we were slightly above the average. The 2018 base assessment, having made modifications in our operation, we volunteered again for another base assessment. The TSA agents came back, redid the base, and of the 20 security action items, we showed that we scored higher than the national average in 19 of the 20 areas and even in 1. And internally, comparing 2015 to 2018, the blue bars are 2015 assessment and the red is 2018. You can see we've made improvements to our safety and security posture. We were able to effect changes mainly through improving our training plans and procedures. Again, our efforts are continuing on. Then we did what they call the SATA, Security Assessment Through Awareness. In 2019, we again met with TSA agents and conducted a tabletop exercise with our office staff, and then a 3-phase security assessment enhancement through awareness training. 2 of those phases were practical application, and then they came and did a security presentation at one of our safety meetings. And I just want to say I'm so proud of our folks that on the first practical application, the TSA agents came in, planted 13 empty backpacks randomly on different buses, and then drivers didn't know that they did it at 4:30 in the morning before anyone showed up. Drivers came in, they went through their pre-trip, and 11 of 13 were found. Much higher than TSA had seen anywhere, and that goes again to the training that we continue to do with our employees. And when they came back to do the second practical application, our drivers found the backpacks 100%. So,
That's what the 15% is, the ones that they missed.
I missed it, right? So, it's a great job. I'm proud of our employees, all of them, and this kind of effort will continue. Of course, we can never rest on our laurels when it comes to security. And if you have any questions, I'll answer them for you.
Thanks, Al.
Good.
Outstanding. Thank you, as always. Appreciate it.
And I think those are the things for me. So again, thank you for the indulgence. I think it's important for the board and for the community to know this, especially with our buses. When you think about, we have, 206 buses going about, 214 going almost 2 million miles a year, picking up, 12, 13,000 kids?
10,000?
No, 12, I said 12.
So if you do about 6,500 kids a day ride twice a day, yeah, you're 13,000.
Yeah, so when you think about how, and sometimes we don't think about it, right? Because it's a given, because everybody drive, everybody transport, but it's such a huge operation, so kudos to transport taking the time. to do so. So thank you for the indulgence again.
Good evening. Tonight we have 7 policies going for first reading that have gone to the Policy Review Committee last month. And it's, as Mrs. Hoffman had noted, we have one brand new one that's being presented for first reading. Are there any questions? Good. Thank you.
Well done.
Okay, moving on to consent items. Let's go, the first one, can I have a motion on the treasurer's report? Ms. Hoffman, Mrs. Miller, second. Any comments, questions? If not, all in favor? And let's go to minutes. Let's combine them. Can I have a motion on?
Bob, I wasn't here on the 8th, so
Okay,
I have to
you
abstain
will
from that.
Abstain from the first one, so we'll go separate. Okay, can I have a motion on the first one? Mrs. Hoffman, second, Mrs. Stevenson. Any comments? Not, all in favor? And just one abstention on the
Yes, one abstention.
8th October minutes. And then let's go to the October 22nd minutes. Mrs. Rajat, motion first. Second, Mrs. Hoffman. Any comments, questions? Not, all in favor? And let's go to action items. First one, business items, approval of ECA clubs, non-cash clubs, and classroom accounts. Can I get a motion on this one? Mrs. Stevenson, second. Mrs. Hoffman, any comments, questions? If not, all in favor? And next, certification of uncollected taxes. That was the paper that we had circulated to get signatures. Let's go through the motions. Can I get a motion on this one? Mrs. Rajat, second. Mrs. Hoffman, any comments, questions? If not, all in favor? Third item, contracted services, professional development, Elliott Marenblum. Can I get a motion on this one? Mrs. Miller, second. Mrs. Stevenson. I would like to make a comment on this. I did follow through on the last meeting to review the alternate schedule that was discussed. I think it was a presentation laid it out very well. I think we're talking to people in the community. I think there's a lot of moving parts, and having a consultant who's done this before is probably time well spent and money well spent. So I appreciate the work going into it. Rather measure twice, cut once mentality on this instead of finding out that we missed something.
And we're being transparent about it.
Yep, absolutely.
People are seeing it and can ask questions and then circulate their thoughts on it. Okay. Any other comments? If not, all in favor? Item 4 is disposal facilities and operations trailer. I think it's our annual thing with the trailer. Can I get a motion on this? Mrs. Stevenson, second. Mrs. Rajat. Any comments, questions? All in favor? Health service contracts. Motion on this. Mrs. Rajat, second. Mr. Delalo. Any comments, questions? If not, all in favor? And final item, private school placements. Can I get a motion on this? Mrs. Hoffman, second. Mrs. Rajat. Comments?
I was looking at
All in favor?
shoes.
Oh, my
Let's
goodness.
go to Mrs. Mylad for acceptance of special education placements.
I love it.
Good evening. I have for you the recommendations from the committees on preschool and school-age special education. Any questions?
Looks good.
Good?
I am good. Thank you.
All good.
Motion on this one? Mrs. Bajat, second Mrs. Miller. Any more comments? If not, all in favor?
Thank you.
And let's go to personnel, recruiting, or staffing recommendations.
Good evening. So tonight we have a couple of probationary appointments, and we have at least one of those folks in the audience. Catherine Guthrie is being recommended to be special education academic administrator at the high school. Catherine is here.
Congratulations.
Catherine comes to us with a wealth of experience, most recently at State Ed in the Special Education Department, and previously working for the Troy City School District. So we're happy to recommend her to be on board. And a special education teacher, I'm not sure if she's in the audience, Kristen Sickles. Okay. So, and Kristen will be starting soon as well. We have a few retirements, if you would indulge me. We have 2 certified staff retirements upcoming. Ginny Fossner is not here tonight. She's retiring after 13 years as a music teacher, end of day in March 1st. And Diane Wheeler retiring after 24 years as an art teacher at the middle school, end of day February 24th. As classified staff, we have Diane Bowers retiring after 15 years with food service, and Nancy Brower retiring after 26 years. She's at the high school in the front office. And Beth Philo retiring after 27 years as a cook manager. So those are our retirements. And yeah, do you want me to go on to the tenure? Okay. So we have 2 employees eligible for tenure this evening. One is a teacher, Jessica Macalusco. Is Jessica in the audience? Jessica is completing a 4-year probationary appointment in English as a new language, and she currently works at Chango with our English language learners. And Mrs. Skarka wrote her tenure recommendation. She says she engages students. She's connected with them in many ways. She has writing buddies for the students, and she's highly recommended for the tenure appointment. Our other person is in the audience tonight. It's an administrator receiving tenure, and that's Mr. Andrew Hills. Andrew, if you could stand up. Completing a 4-year probationary appointment as an elementary principal at Orangen Elementary School, and he is, all the recommendations go through Dr. Robinson, but Dr. Robinson is the supervisor of the principals and wrote Andy's tenure recommendation. And at the end of it, it says, as superintendent of schools, I affirmatively recommend the granting of tenure to Mr. Andrew Hills as the elementary principal in the Shenendehowa Central School District. It is expected that Mr. Hills shall use the comments that are in the thing and suggestions as a guidepost to continue enhancing his leadership capacity and his impact on Orangen Elementary School and the district as a whole. Mr. Hills is vested with the opportunity to work in a district that demands proactive thinking and planning and steadfastly focused and committed to excellence. So it's with high regard that we recommend Andrew Hills for tenure. Those are the tenure recommendations.
We'll vote on, do you have the lead evaluators and transportation changes? Did you want to speak to them?
So they're really, no, the transportation changes are typical every month, and the lead evaluator, we will continue to have certification as new administrators come.
Okay, so we'll vote on, we'll take a motion on this, and then we'll bring Mr. Hills up to recognize him with a picture. Okay, can I get a motion on the staffing placements? Ms. Hoffman, second Mrs. Miller. Any other comments, questions? If not, all in favor? Okay, Mr. Hills, can you come up, please?
Catherine Guthrie.
And
Come on up,
Catherine. Oh,
Catherine.
yeah.
Just want to shake hands and say
Really
congratulations.
So much. Congratulations.
Congrats. Might as well do the count.
Yeah. You gotta come around this way. You gotta come over here now. Yes.
The other way.
Oh, you're in front. Okay, there you go. Thank you. Congratulations. Congratulations.
So, just an observation, I noticed that Mrs. Smilard wore her favorite red shoes.
Oh my God, I love those red shoes.
And Mrs. Guthrie, who's also a special education administrator, wore her favorite red shoes. So I don't know if Mrs. Smilard is influencing her already.
I love it, I love it, I love it.
I like it. I think it's a good thing.
I love
Choose
it.
two. Feel how to put,
It makes me smile. Talk about shoes, Dr. Rob.
like Dorothy, clicking her heels. Clicking
Yes,
heels.
yes,
Like Dorothy.
we're good. Let's go over to.
Ruby slippers.
The ruby slippers. Oh, sorry.
Second reading
Focus
being
now.
presented tonight, and do we have any questions regarding that?
Okay, looks good.
Okay, can I get a motion on this? Mrs. Hoffman, second Mrs. Miller, any comments, questions? If not, all in favor?
Thank you.
At this point, we're going to open back up to public comments. Does anybody want to make a public comment? Going once, twice?
So,
Then let's go with policy review. We have that coming up tomorrow. Before we adjourn, I do want to recommend not only board dates, but Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 2 showings of the Crucible. So high school students have done a great job putting this together. Please attend one of those events. I think you'll be very happy with the work they've done on it.
And NHS
West.
Thursday night.
Thursday.
is Thursday. And
Yes.
it's high school east or high school west?
High school
High school west, okay.
Yeah?
Okay, so that's
Yep.
7?
6:30.
6:30.
Crucible is at High School West. So
Gotcha.
separate buildings. Do we have a game on Friday?
We have several sectional things going on.
Okay.
Friday night, Troy.
We
Okay.
have
Going to
football
Troy.
Friday, we have volleyball Thursday.
Soccer Saturday.
Soccer Saturday. We have a lot of good things. Our kids are doing a lot of great work, and stay tuned. We have all those kids here at some point in a couple weeks to recognize them for their wonderful work. So, as well as some drama kids after the piece.
Yes.
Good.
Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn? Mrs. Stevenson, Mrs. Hoffman, all in favor? Okay, meeting adjourned.